have some really highly valued clients out of town, Bay Area, New York, and other states. So welcome. Look forward to chatting with you guys afterwards. We'll get this on YouTube. I'll get the links to you guys if you want to send them out to some of your other clients and contacts. It'll be a good opportunity to share what you're doing in the industry and provide some value to people. So, like I said, we're going to get started. Thanks for coming. You know, as always, it's hard to gauge the crowd until we're here. And you know, I thought we might have a little bit bigger crowd in terms of who RSVP, but as it is, we'll still get a lot of value out of it. I know every time I hear a presentation or help conduct a presentation, I learn something. And with several people in here are either in the real estate, well, they're in the real estate industry either as real estate agents or in other endeavors, we'll learn some good stuff. So looking forward to it. Quick introduction in terms of how this is going to differ from the workshops a couple of you guys have been to here before. Generally, when we put on an investors workshop, and we do a few a year, people want to hear about what we're doing in flipping houses, quite frankly. I always say that's kind of a crude term for what we use, but it's simple to understand. So they see the before and after photos in our binders and what we're putting up on some of our social media pages. And we have investors that, fortunately, we've kept pretty happy with our performance, and so we put out some reviews on it and things. But that's really the short-term stuff, and that's a big part of our business focus, and we're thankful for it. But especially for people who are looking at long-term investing, maybe they're starting out at a younger age, like some of you guys, the pathway to real sustainable long-term wealth is through holdings, you know, whether it be commercial holdings, land, or as I'm sure we'll talk about a lot tonight, and Matt will present on towards the end, is rentals. So I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. I'm sure I'll talk about some of our experiences after I turn the floor over and how some of the rehab work we've done in real estate has an interplay with the topics tonight. But it's really gauged towards those who want to use real estate as part of their portfolio. So I know folks tuning in tonight on the web have real estate portfolios that are a significant part, if not the biggest part, of what they envision to be their retirement. So we're going to, Jeff is going to talk about 1031 exchanges. Chris is going to talk about leveraging that property through cross-collateralization into more investments. And then Matt will talk about tenancy, which is probably the most important thing in any long-term holding. And I'll interject here and there. So with that, we'll bring up Jeff Yonomy to talk about 1031 exchanges. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. So, as Chris was saying, we're going to be talking about investment property, not your primary residence. It's going to be real estate investment. It could be from rental all the way to commercial. So what is a 1031 exchange? 1031 exchange is any investment property held for the productive use in a trade or business. You can exchange it for another property of like kind that's also used in the productive use or trade or business. So the biggest question I always get, what is like kind in real estate? Okay? So what like kind means is any property that's not your primary residence, you can do a 1031 exchange on. And you can mix and match it. So what does that mean? Sell a commercial building for a ranch land, vacant for residential, rental properties for an easement for 30 years or more, and leaseholds. You can, anything that's considered real property in the state in which you buy it, you can do a 1031 exchange on. Anywhere in the United States. So you're not just stuck with California. Okay? So think about it, it just expanded your whole investment portfolio across the United States.
Question, Jeff, before you move on, because I know you mentioned one of the most common questions you get is about what is like kind. And people oftentimes think if they're selling a residential, they have to reinvest into a residential. And you made it pretty clear, it doesn't have to go residential. The next thought, though, is, okay, what, as you put on the board, something like vacant land, for example, in residential. The vacant land may not be producing income for them if it's just sitting there bare, and they want to buy a piece of residential property that would produce income. That's still like kind?
Yes, it is. Because it doesn't say, the code doesn't read, does it have to be income producing? Are your rentals producing income, or you're running a negative. So you can have a negative producing property and still do a 1031 exchange on, right? So it doesn't have to have a tenant on it to do a 1031 exchange. It could be just raw land that you're just holding for investment purposes, maybe in the path of growth. So if you come out here to Elk Grove, you're going to go down to the sports complex, you know they're going to build around it, you buy something out there, somebody might come across and say, hey, we want to buy your vacant land. You could do a 1031 exchange on it. Okay? Benefits of the 1031 exchange are huge. Okay? They're not just to defer the capital gains tax. Okay? There are many other benefits to do that. Number one is to increase your portfolio of wealth. As Chris was saying in the beginning, as you're starting out, you're going to be buying a rental property or commercial property. It's about long-term holding. So when you start building that equity, then you sell it and you do a 1031 exchange. Just by doing the 1031 exchange, you'll increase your wealth in about 30% more. It's because you're not paying the taxes, right? You're using the capital gains tax to buy more property. That's why you increase your wealth. So think about it. That's why your Donald Trumps, all your downtown high rises, a lot of them are bought by corporations using 1031 exchanges. Okay? They're not paying the taxes, they're just rolling and keep on rolling, and they roll up to bigger properties. How you start off? Rental property. Sell the rental property, exchange it for a fourplex. Fourplex, you go to an apartment. Apartment, you go to commercial. Commercial, you take down the Transamerican building downtown San Francisco. You just keep on rolling it up. Okay? That's why Transamerican building has 3 owners, and they're all bought 1031 exchange.
I have a question about capital gains. Let's say you bought something 7 years ago. Is there any point at which it's a rental property and you bought it 7 years ago, and you have a depreciation schedule on your payments in terms of your interest write-off? Is there a point at which, I know this is more of a CPA question, but is there a point at which it makes sense to maybe exchange it and leverage that asset for something bigger and larger?
Yes.
From a tax standpoint.
From a tax standpoint, yes. You might have a zero, you might depreciate all the way down to a 0 basis. So basically you have no more depreciation on the property. So if it's single family, it's going to be 27.5 years. So if you're down in the 20-year range, you might want to consider selling that because your depreciation is going to be gone within 5 years. And then you sell that, and then you exchange it up. So anything that you exchange up is going to be added to the basis. So then now you have more depreciation to go forward. And that's where a lot of CPAs, you work with your CPA regarding that, then you could probably increase your...
Somewhere in the 7 to 10 year period, you would say, or...
It all depends, because you might have, have a lot of gain, with just a little bit of depreciation, and it'll still be feasible for you to do a 1031 exchange, because then you can exchange up. You can exchange up more. Okay? We're going to talk about management a little bit later, but it's also used for management control. If you don't have a performing property and you're always getting bad tenants, you can sell that property and go get a better one. Okay? Just by the mere fact of doing the 1031 exchange. Okay? It doesn't have to be for tax purposes, it can be for tenant purposes too. Okay? Leverage. Chris is going to be talking about that too, but you're using other people's money to buy more real estate. You can do also consolidation and diversification. What a lot of people use that for is estate planning purposes. Okay, so I'm going to retire. I'm going to retire to Hawaii. So I have my investments here. I sell them here, and I go do a 1031 exchange and buy it in Hawaii. I'm getting ready to retire in 5 years. In 5 years I retire. My house is already over there. Okay.
That would be an example of consolidation, right?
Either way.
Because if you have multiple properties here that are of lower value than a property in Maui, you sell multiple here, you consolidate into one at a higher value market. Is that what you're
You can do that, or we had people go from a higher market, Bay Area, and basically diversify and buy one out there and bought one in Florida, so they split it up like that. So they had 2 destination homes that they could choose from. So these are, you're thinking outside the box, and you're going to be planning for long-term rate. Okay. Here's an example based on increasing your wealth. A sale where you're gonna pay the taxes, and the 1031 exchange. So if you sell and you pay the taxes, you're gonna estimate you're gonna pay 1/3 of your capital gains are gonna go to Uncle Sam. So if you sell for $540, you got closing costs, you have all the cash, you have $500,000 of gain, you're gonna pay that 1/3 of that. $150,000 goes to Uncle Sam, you have $350,000. If you ledger it to the hilt, 70% loan to value, you're gonna get just about $1.2 million. If you do the 1030 exchange, all the cash, $500,000 goes in, you do the same thing, 70%, loan to value, $1.6 million. Okay? Just by doing the exchange, you increased your wealth. So what's the process? What are the 3 things that you always gotta know? First thing everybody knows, do not touch the money. Okay? All the money comes to us, we hold it for you, and that's gonna be your down payment that has to be reinvested into the new property. Second thing everybody forgets is the debt that's on the property. It must be replaced. So whenever you do a 1030 exchange, whatever you sell for, you must buy something equal to or more to do 100% tax-deferred exchange. Anything less, the difference is going to be taxable. Okay, you just pay the taxes on the difference. Third thing everybody forgets is title. Who owns the property? So if it's married couple, joint tenants, if you're a single person, you'll be single person. LLC, LLC, partnership, partnership. So we're looking for a continuity of title in the 1031 exchange. Okay? So you cannot change it in the interim. Yes?
And the other thing is I have to engage you prior to consummating the deal on the sale.
That is
Correct.
correct. It has to be opened up for the close of escrow on the property that they sell. Yep. So how many days does the IRS give you? 180 days, which is about 6 months, to do a 1031 exchange. The first 45 days is the most important part. This is where you have to identify what property or properties that you intend to buy. It's not that you have to buy, it's what you intend to buy. There's 2 rules for that. First rule, you identify 1, 2, or 3 properties, any value. Second rule is the 200% rule. This is where you identify 4 or more properties. The IRS says you cannot just say, hey, I want 10 properties, there's going to be like $10 million. The IRS says that's not a good identification. They cap you on the total value of all the properties identified to twice the value of what you sold, or 200%. So the 2 rules are based upon how many properties you identify. It's either going to be first rule, 3 properties, or the second rule, if you go 4 or more properties. Okay? Any questions on identifying?
And how do you establish value? Is it just based on the listing price? Or the
Listing price, fair market value at the time that you identify it. Okay? So a typical exchange process. If I sell for $400,000, I have costs of $30,000. My loan is $150,000 paid off at the close of escrow, so I have to replace that $150,000. My net proceeds are $220,000. That's going to be my down payment. And then what I do is just get the difference in a debt with Jim or Chris for $480,000, which is equal to or more. So I exchange up to $700,000, and that's how you increase your wealth. Start moving up. If it's too difficult to find that property, there's an option that you could do it backwards, where you can find the property first, and then sell the property that you need to sell. Okay, it's more costly, but you can do it. It's available to you. And a lot of commercial guys, builders, they do a lot of reverse exchanges because they want that particular property. So they lock it up, and then they sell the property that they need to sell and do the 1031 exchange. Now, typical reverse exchange, you're going to sell first. You're going to buy it first for $400,000, so you put 30% down. Call Chris, say, hey, I'm going to put $120,000 down. I'm going to get a loan for $280,000 short term. Then you sell your property that you need to sell for 400,000, all the cash that I put in for the 120,000 gets paid back first out of the net proceeds. Any difference goes down to pay the debt. And then when everything is settled, your new debt should be equal to or more than the loan that you have for 150,000. So then you could go in and then convert this debt, this hard money loan, with Jim to get a long-term conventional loan.
I don't know if Chris or the lender, so how do you qualify in this instance where you already?
Do it backwards. You have to qualify to get that loan on this property.
As if the first doesn't, or the second property doesn't sell? Or
Correct.
It's an accumulated debt evaluation.
Right.
Okay.
So what happens is, the only drawback when you do a reverse exchange, is I say what happens is you can't sell this property. It hasn't sold, so what happens is at the 180th day, we have to give the property back to you. Because in the IRS code it says you cannot do a temporary exchange on a property that you already own. So in the case of the reverse exchange, you already own that property, and you're going to be buying another property, you got to give one of the properties.
So there's a lot of risk involved with this arrangement?
No, I think the
Some
only
risk.
Some risk
The risk is that you
that you're not going to
get
sell.
stuck with both, and that's why you were asking the question. You have to qualify based on your current income being able to float both properties.
As if the other one doesn't sell.
Right.
Correct.
And so if you were in a position where if you had to keep both, it was gonna put you in a tough spot, that would be the risk.
That would be the risk. Because what happens, it would just be like you just buy another piece of property.
The other risk is it just, it sells a week too late and you have a taxable event.
Exactly, and that would be just like selling the property and buying another one. Multiple property exchanges, so we're seeing more multiple property exchanges because short sales and foreclosures. You probably had a lot of investors come in and say, hey, I want to buy this short sale, I want to buy this REO, I want to do this. Values have gone up. So now a lot of them are doing consolidation or diversification. So in consolidation, all you do is you're going to sell both two properties, you just add them up. Sell the first property, 400,000, second property for $500,000, and then you just start, what's the net proceeds? You just add them up. What's my debt? You add them up. And that's going to be your minimum that you got to buy is at $830,000. If you go over that, then you're looking to do 100% tax deferred. Okay, so you can consolidate them in. Diversification, same way. Okay, sell the property for 400. Let's say you want to buy two, just find you two good deals. Then you split it up, and you don't have to split it up 50-50. You can split it up however you want it. So you can put 100 on one, 200 on the other, and then just go ahead and get the debt to buy the other two properties. So you could do it that way. Or you could stick all the debt on one and buy one all cash. Okay? So either or, either way. There's also a more advanced exchange. So if you're buying land or you're doing fixer-uppers and you maybe want to keep some of them, there's something called a build-to-suit or improvement exchange, where actually you could go in, buy the property all cash, and then use the excess exchange funds to make the improvement. So what happens is that your exchange value goes up. So you sell your property for $400,000. There's no debt. I have $370,000 cash. I buy the new property for $300,000, and I have $70,000 to work with to improve the property. What happens is we take title to the property while the improvements are being done. Then we go back to you. We make sure that you approve it, and then we cut the check from the exchange fund to go out. Once all this is $70,000 is used up, the exchange is over, we give it back to you, and you complete your 1031 exchange. Yes?
Going back to that slide, okay, so you're saying that, I'm trying to understand this.
On the bill suit?
Yeah, you try to make improvements prior to the purchase? No.
No, actually, this is going to be done after the purchase.
All right.
So what happens is, you sell your property, all the funds come to us, so we have $370,000 in your account. You go find a property for $300,000,
Right.
you have to buy it all
You
cash.
estimate the improvements to be $70,000.
Right, so then the extra 70,000, instead of paying capital gains tax on it, you could use that to go put in a new roof, put in a new kitchen, do a master bath, do all your improvements to the property. Once it's all used up, we deed the property back to you. And then you can complete whatever you need to complete by just getting another takeout loan or whatever construction loan to finish out the project. But then your exchange will be completed in that 180-day time frame, or as soon as you fulfill all the requirements, the cash and the debt. So you can do that too. A little bit more advanced, a little bit more costly. These are about $3,500 to start with.
And I'll have a neat example to share of something like that between when Jeff is finishing and Chris comes up, because I just got done doing something similar to that. In a little bit different way, but it accomplished the same thing. It's very useful.
Tax laws you guys got to be aware of. Assembly Bill 92 basically said, if you do a 1031 exchange to Hawaii, to Florida, Franchise Tax Board, State of California, says and requires that you must do a filing requirement in the year in which you do the exchange and every year thereafter. If you do not do the filing, Franchise Tax Board of California could deem the property sold and assess income tax and penalties on you for that property. Okay, so just be aware, this is not your job, it should be your CPA's job that does this filing for you. So just make sure that you're just aware that you're going out of state when you do the 1031 exchange. Okay?
I don't understand that. You have to report it even the next year.
Yes. That's how they wrote the code or the rule for this assembly bill. So what they're doing is it's considered like a clawback, or they're tracking you where that property goes. So let's say you went, so what's happening, a lot of people do a 1031 exchange to Nevada, and then they don't file it, and then they sell that Nevada property, and there's no state income tax, they only have to pay the federal. So they just pay federal, and California goes, we just lost X amount of dollars going out of state. So what they're doing is now they're tracking it. And even though you went to Nevada, which is a no state income tax, California still wants their cut when you sell that property. So that's why it's, and every year they're going to track it, and then all of a sudden you don't file it, they say, oh, you sold it. They're going to trigger saying.
What if you have a terrible year and you show losses?
But you still have gain on that property. Even though you show losses, it's going to still show gain. Because you did some sort of exchange, so your basis.
You might have a loss for that in years coming up, but back when we sold it, there was the initial property.
So you have to file forever and ever.
Forever and ever.
Yeah.
Until you sell that property, come back to California, or you sell it and you just get it back. Okay? So that's that law. That's what they put into effect. Okay? The other question that we always get, how soon can I move into my investment property that I did a 1031 exchange on? Okay? There's nothing in the code that says how long. Okay? And remember, it's their intent to hold as investment. Okay? They leave it open because of unforeseen circumstances, loss of job, divorce, whatever that is, okay? It helps them out in their situation. So there's nothing that says I can't move into the next month, but they gotta be a really good reason, okay?
That's the other piece that I'll reference. We've taken advantage of that.
Yeah. So other issues with 1031 exchanges. If you do sell an investment property and you carry back a note, okay, we don't recommend that you carry back a note if you're going to do a 1031 exchange, because then what happens is that note basically is partitioned off, and you're only going to do a partial exchange if you keep that note. But if you want that note part of the exchange, then it has to be made out to us. There's an additional fee of $250 for the note, and then that note has to be used as consideration to buy the new property. How many sellers are going to accept that note? There's not a lot. Okay, so that's why when you're doing a 1031 exchange, it's better to say, I want all my cash because I need to do my 1031 exchange. Okay. Related party issues. big issue right now because a lot of families, dads and moms are helping their kids buy properties. So if I'm selling a rental property and I'm gonna help my son out, if I say I wanna give him or put him 50% with me on my new property, if I sell for 400, I'm gonna buy for 400. If I give him 50%, I just lost $200,000 in basis in this property. So I only have $200,000 in this property. If I'm going to give him 50%, I have to exchange up twice the value to 800. So I cover my exchange for 400 in that $800,000 piece of property. So that's why you got to consider what percentage you're going to be giving that related party when you do the 1030 exchange. Okay. The other thing is partnerships and LLCs when they're multi-member. So if we have a group and we have an LLC, and let's say we bought this building, and then now so we're going to sell it, but half of us want to do the exchange, and the other half are just going to pay the taxes. What happens is the IRS says, you cannot drop it into the individual's names and then sell it, and then we can do our exchange, and they pay the taxes. Because the question is going to be, who held the property for investment purposes? It was 3 Point Realty LLC that held that property. It wasn't each individual, Chris, Jeff, Jim type of thing. So that's why our Franchise Tax Board is doing audits on partnerships and LLCs right now, and that's what they're basically telling us. If you have a drop and swap, is what they consider it, they will disqualify it every day of the week. So if you have an entity that's coming in that wants to buy property or sell property, make them aware of this, because there's something that they should consider and talk to their counsel about before they sell. Okay? Any other questions? Concerns?
So is it really difficult to find the 3 replacement properties and consummate the transaction? I mean, this market's very,
It depends on the market.
it's a seller-oriented market, so you know that there's multiple offers on everything. So in that environment where you're trying to identify these 3, you can lose all 3. So
Right.
I'm just wondering, how to kind of manage that time frame, because you don't want to be left at the end of the process with nothing.
You can be in escrow on both properties at the same time. So it's not like you have to wait till you sell, you close, and then you go out and find another property. You can actually, when you're selling, looking for that property and have both of them in escrow at the same time, so you're running simultaneously, just to make sure that you close on your property first that you want to sell, because it's cheaper, and then the funds will just get transferred over to the new property. So we have, right now we're doing a lot of short exchanges within 30 days. They just basically close, and they're doing a lot because what they're doing is they're working with the broker and say, hey Chris, go find me a property, we're gonna sell this one.
Let's say you're buying something that requires improvements. And let's say that, okay, you can do the close, well, let's say that, that work has to be done. Yeah, I guess you can close, and then do the improvements afterwards. You don't want to have the improvements kind of mess up your schedule.
Right.
Basically what you're saying, right?
The other thing, I've seen primarily what Jeff mentioned, which is you're getting into contract to purchase one as you're in contract to sell the other. The other thing I've seen is, let's say your sale is just closed, escrow, and now you're out starting to look, it's firing off offers a lot, right? I mean, you know how the market is. And then if you get to, you have 45 days to identify. So if you haven't gotten into an escrow by day 25, 30 that you're real comfortable with, real confident in, then it's time to just go out and pick your next best 3. And, well, I haven't got stuck with.
So you can change the 3 that you identify?
Yes, within the 45 days, you can change your mind.
Yeah, you have to, like, on the day 46, that's when you're correct.
So if
day
those
46
3
is
sell, then you can replace.
I can make an offer on 10 in the first 25
And
days.
none of them stay.
Yeah.
Then you
Then
go
you,
find out more.
then you pick your best 3, and on day 46, then you're locked into those.
And it doesn't say, there's nothing in the code that says how long you have to hold on to that exchange property before you do another 1030 exchange. So let's say you said, well, let's just go ahead and buy that property because we want to save paying the taxes. You can do that too. Hold it, get it done, get it ready to put it back on the market, and then sell it because they want to just close it down.
Anybody have any other questions? So I want to add one kind of case study to this, if you will, because it's perfectly suited to what he was just talking about and a couple of questions you answered, or that you guys asked. So there was a slide in there where he was talking about, can you use it for purchasing a principal residence? And technically it's no, right? But you buy it with the intent of it being a rental property. Things change, life happens, it becomes principal residence, right? It's the same thing. So people are always asking me, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, about our business and flipping houses and doing improvements. And so we had a client ask, hey, can I use my 1031 exchange and use all that money to start flipping houses with you? Well, not technically the way we normally do things. There's two problems. One is flipping houses is considered business activity as opposed to investment property. Am I saying that about right? So you're not supposed to use it for that. Secondly, besides having the cash the cash boot that you have to reinvest, he also had to reinvest his debt. So what he talked to his provider, his exchange provider, very carefully, and you could buy a house with the intent of renting it, post ads on Craigslist, putting it up for rent. Let's say it doesn't rent for a month, you decide to sell it. You're going to have a hard time proving like IRS or whoever, would have a hard time proving in one instance that that was not your intent. So what we did, we used his exchange cash and new replacement debt to buy one of the houses we wanted to flip, put him on title for it, which you could say would be a risk for us. We have a good relationship. So we put him on title. So he's reinvested all his cash proceeds from his exchange. He's reinvested all of his debt into the new property that we're doing. We put him on title. He calls it a rental property that's going to be put up for rent after we fix it up. In terms of the improvements, rather than having, I think he said that the exchange company, you guys would hold title of the place till after the improvements are done, right? So that would be one way to do it. What we did, it was use a loan with a contractor's draw account. Chris would know about this and probably talk to you guys about it afterwards. Basically, we had $85,000 held back by the lender to be released to us as work was being done, so we didn't have to do what Jeff was referencing. When we're finished fixing the place up, we'll market it for rent for a couple weeks before we put it on the market to sell. His exchange company's satisfied. Now, he couldn't do that 2, 3, 4 times a year, because then it would become obvious. But if he did it once in a year because he just wanted to pick up some quick cash on a job he was pretty confident in that we're doing, I mean, we went over and over with his exchange representative and his CPA, and they said it's fine. So there's some creative things, like he was mentioning, you can do with the exchanges. I'm just learning this recently, and I'd love to share more about it with you guys. So,
Is that something that the exchange company scrutinizes, or are you just doing your due diligence in the event that you get audited by the IRS that you've done everything?
it was more me doing diligence on behalf of our client. His property that he sold was down in San Diego, and so he had already been put in touch with an exchange company in San Diego. I don't know them from anybody else. But I got on the phone with them and I said, hey, listen, I got to look out for this client, take care of his interests. If we use his funds into this property that we're essentially flipping, is he gonna have an issue? That's when she said, well, as I was referencing Jeff, that's a business practice. That doesn't really qualify for the exchange. But if he can make it look like on paper that he's buying it as a replacement property being rental, and then he just so happens not being able to rent it and ends up selling it for a profit.
That works.
Then it works, and he's only going to do it once in the year. And then when we sell it, the way we're going to make our money through 3 Point Real Estate and Construction is we're going to charge our percentage of the profit to him as a fee as a general contractor. That way, that's all on the open up. And then he rolls his share of the profit again into another income producing property, which is one job. So anyway, bottom line is there's some creative ways to do things, and I've been learning a lot about. We've worked with clients the last several years through the tumultuous real estate market on using the exchange, and now we're starting to learn some new ways to do it, so it's pretty exciting. So Chris, why don't you come up and talk to us about ways to collateralize property. Jeff talked about leveraging property, and you take your, he had one slide where he talked about reinvesting $350,000 versus reinvesting $500,000. That's a $150,000 difference, but the amount of property that you could buy is not a $150,000 difference because of the principle of leverage. I think it was like a $600,000 difference on your slide, somewhere in there.
Yep.
And that's what Chris would talk about.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Hard Money Chris with Team Socotra. We're your local direct private money lender. We lend on properties that don't qualify, borrowers don't qualify, or in the investor community, we close same as cash in the hopes of obtaining some type of discount, price reduction with same as cash. What I mean by same as cash is we can close in a timeline typically less than 2 weeks. So I could go on and on in regards to that, but we've worked a lot with the 3 Point real estate team with Chris McPhail, lending on his rehabs and flips to obtain that discount and lend the money on both the purchase and the improvements. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about how the hard money fits in with building your real estate portfolio. A lot of people, once they have so many properties in their portfolio, will have a hard time going to Jim to try to get a loan. Jim, how many properties, if I have 10 properties in my portfolio that I have loans on, and another 4 that are paid off free and clear, is that, what is the limit now with traditional financing?
10.
10 properties?
10 loans.
10 loans.
You can have 20 properties, but only 10 can be financed.
Okay, so in that case, I'm maxed out, I can't get another loan. Perhaps I find another property that I want to purchase. Perhaps I'm using a 1031 exchange. I have some cash, but for the most part, my cash is locked up in my properties, be it some of the properties that are owned free and clear, or some that have equity or not equity, but I have debt on them. So what I can do then in that case is go to a hard money lender and let them know I'm looking to purchase this piece of real estate, be it land, be it ag land, be it commercial property, residential property. I could then put up my investment property that I own free and clear, or with some debt on it. If there's enough equity, we're an equity-based lender. We can free up that cash to cross-collateralize with a purchase of another property and acquire more real estate in that regard. Once I've made the loan and the borrower has consummated the deal, then at that point they might go back to Jim. Maybe they sell off another property so that they have a loan available to where you can make a loan on it. So we're a vital piece of the fabric of the investment community in regards to freeing up that cash for a purchase where there's a profit to be had, or a scenario where there's a property that must need to be acquired. Whether it's a 1031 exchange or cross-collateralizing one property to buy another one. The money can be paid back within days or weeks after the loan has been consummated. So another challenge that someone might have with a conventional loan is that you can't pay it back right away. With the hard money, there's no minimum hold time typically, so you can use the money as transactional financing, a bridge loan, whatever you decide to call it. There is a cost associated with this. The cost of the hard money is much more expensive than traditional financing because it is private money and the money's not earning interest over the course of 30-40 years. So typically the cost of the money will be somewhere between 3 to 5%, included just for the cost of the money, one-time charge, the points and fees, and then there's an annual interest charge that's calculated on a daily basis and paid monthly. Typically rates are anywhere from 10 to 13%. So this allows a borrower or investor in this case to acquire more property, potentially add value by adding a bedroom or a bathroom, because we not only lend on the purchase but also on the improvements. And it's a great way to leverage the cash that you might have that will allow you to acquire in a case where you might acquire one property or two properties, maybe acquire either a more desirable property or increase volume, increase profits. Please, questions?
What do you have to do to qualify for?
Great question. So our underwriting is completely different than what, say, Jim's traditional underwriting would look at. We are interested in credit and ability to repay, but that's not really what we're looking at so much as how much cash skin in the game you have to come in with, how much the property is going to cost to purchase. Basically the scenario, the story. I can buy this property for 50 cents on the dollar. There's 50% of built-in equity right off the bat. So really the requirement is skin in the game, be it 25, 35% cash to come in with, as little as that, or equity in another property. Loan application, tax returns, bank statements, simply to complete the story. Our underwriting is not based on how long you've been with the job, debt to income ratio, so much as a lot of business owners may not show well on paper, but they have strong cash reserves, or show really well on paper, don't have strong cash reserves, but are bringing in a partner. Perhaps we want to make a loan to a group of individuals that started an entity. Perhaps you're using your retirement funds, you've moved them into a self-directed IRA. We can actually lend to the entity. So there's a lot of versatility that we can provide. We're seeing a lot of business purpose loans where people are taking cash out and funding maybe a business purpose or business enterprise that doesn't really have a proven track record. So that's also something that we've seen happen and we can help with.
So let me give you a scenario. We're doing the exchange and there's equity in the first sale and you're buying a piece of property. So you need let's say $350,000 in loan money to complete that transaction. Plus you need some money for improvements. So now let's say in this scenario you're not totally bankable with a traditional lender. So in that scenario, how would you deal with that?
Yeah, great question. So essentially you have a 1031 exchange, be it a reverse exchange or a normal exchange, and you're trying to acquire another property. When you're in a 1031 exchange, you're in a time-sensitive situation, so you don't have the luxury of perhaps waiting to get approved for a loan, or perhaps the property you're trying to acquire wouldn't qualify for a loan. So we would make the bridge loan, satisfy the 1031 exchange by entering into more debt. You would acquire the property, stabilize it. Maybe if it's a multifamily unit, you're stabilizing the rents, bringing in rents, or upgrading the value, and then you would qualify for takeout financing, be it commercial takeout financing or residential takeout financing with Jim.
That's the exact scenario I was referencing earlier. So that's spot on what we just recently successfully.
I mean, you got two costs. You've got the purchase cost for the replacement property, and then you've got the improvement cost for the replacement property. So is that like one loan that you wrap and everything, or is it?
We're pretty solution oriented, and it's not to say that we've always done it that way, but we are on the hard money side, we are a rehab lender. Not all hard money lenders lend on purchase plus improvements. That's sort of our niche, is those added value plays. We understand that in this market, a lot of people are acquiring property, and for example, in San Francisco, where property values and finding a place to live is a highly sought after commodity. There's a lot of value to be gained by adding a bedroom, a bathroom, upgrading the finishes, and so those are some ways where investors are making those gains. So in that case, we will lend on the purchase plus the improvements. So it does satisfy the requirement of entering into greater debt. You're able to obtain the property, and now you have the cash to not only purchase it, but also make the improvements. And that dollar amount is included in the loan, and going back to satisfying the requirements, if you need to enter into greater debt, that rehab money counts as that additional
part of
debt.
2 times value, the improvement value, or is it the purchase value?
No, it's always the purchase value. No, it's going to be contract.
Oh, okay.
Let me ask you a question. If in certain cases, our loan amount can actually exceed the cost of acquisition. So if, for example, if Chris is buying an investment property that's cost $500,000 to purchase, it's $500,000 to rehab. My loan is $750,000 in that case, even though they're buying it for $500,000. Just curious.
With the franchise tax board, well, that certain scenario came up with the state stuff. They said that they would rather have you have two separate loans in that sense. Have one just for the purchase and then get the second one for the improvements. But I would,
I didn't mean to do that.
It's a
to you.
pretty exaggerated example.
Yeah.
But the point, I mean, a more realistic example might be like, you bought a place for 120, you were gonna put 80 into it, now my loan's 150, but the place is only cost 120, and you know,
Right.
that's
Because
more
closer.
realistic. And
yeah.
I'm sure there's some gray areas. Maybe I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm learning also.
Nope, that's good.
Well, I'm sure there's, you know, you could stump any one of us with a trick question. But, you
Well,
know,
I've actually seen that recently, and it went through.
so
Again, I play in the gray area a lot.
I might have some homework. But there's a lot of gray areas, and, you know, I don't have all the answers, but it certainly, I enjoy finding out what the answer is.
And with that, yeah, I would recommend always talking to the US CPA, because the CPA is the one that's going to be the final decision maker.
All right.
Well, one of the things I would, like, again, kind of a case study with what Chris is doing is so just giving you some experience we've had that kind of ties what both these guys are doing and what our business offers a lot of times, is we had a client who had some land outright, okay, and was holding that land for long-term development or personal use, and it was just sitting there, but it could be viewed as an investment property, even though it's not producing income. So it's sitting there. 3 Point Real Estate got involved in a rehab or one of our flips. The client wants to be involved in that flip as what we call an investing partner. That's a different presentation. But they were cash poor, but they had this investment property just sitting there. So what they do is they cross-collateralize as an individual investing partner. They cross-collateralize that land with Socotra. You only, I think it was 60 or 65% loan to value, but they got the money out of that land they needed to invest in the new property. Now they're paying interest on it, but they're still able to leverage that property into a new investment while still maintaining control of that initial property, which is what I want to reference. Because the other option is what? Sell that property. Now you have 100% of that worth to invest in other projects, but you've lost control of that property that you initially wanted to hold and then develop long term. Use cross-collateralization through someone like Chris. You take out the money, you invest it into another property, partner with some people, couple it with an exchange, and do some pretty interesting things. So that's kind of how I saw the interplay of that coming together, personally and through some of our transactions.
Another crossing commercial with residential, that's something that we can handle. That's weird for a lot of lenders.
I haven't seen that yet, but it sounds awesome, and I like the creativity. So we recently did with you guys a land to residential. We could go just like Jeff's chart showed earlier. We could go pretty much any. I think you had 6 of them around the center, and they all
They
the same
could
way.
do anything and everything.
Yeah, cool. Well, this was all geared towards long-term stuff, building net worth, using leverage and collateral to acquire new investment property, and that's it turned in building a long-term real estate portfolio. A lot of that, not all of it, like I just mentioned, the land purchase, the land usage, there's no tenant there, but most of it, whether you have a commercial building like this and you're leasing out space, or you have a multifamily building and you have a property manager taking care of 6 units, or you have 6 different houses located around the metropolitan area, you have to manage those properties. And one of the most important facets of a successful real estate investment is the tenant. So we're going to have Matt come up and talk about some of the tips that we've learned together and some of the most positive attributes of creating and maintaining good tenants.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Matt Johnson. I'm the 3 Point representative, property management representative here at 3 Point. We're going to be discussing the importance of maintaining positive tenant-owner relationships, the benefits that come from it, as well as the steps to ensure a positive, mutual, beneficial relationship with both parties. I really like the informalness of the discussion, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to stop me and chime in with any questions or comments that you guys may have. So let's say you guys just purchased a new home that you want to use for investing purposes, right? So you did all the repairs, you did all the rehab, you fixed it up, the house is move-in ready. So what do? You have to find a tenant. You want to start, you have to have a tenant because you want to start recouping that money that you invested into the property. You want to start getting it back out of it, right? So most owners I talk to at this stage, they want to put a tenant in there right away. They want to start getting that money. They want to get that investment, that money back out of it as soon as possible. I tell them not to make a rash decision, not to make a haste decision, and really take your time to properly vet the tenants beforehand. You know, it's really important to build a rapport with these people on the front end of the relationship. Take your time to do your research, take your time to get to know these people, and eventually, that's going to eventually live in the home.
I've messed that one up personally when I started out, so.
I think we all have.
So, like I was saying, I understand the frustration that the owners are put in this position. They invest this money, they fork out all this money out of their pocket to fix the house up, so they want to get the people in there right away. The best way to build a good rapport with the tenants would be, I like to say, is have a phone call conversation with them. So you put these ads on Craigslist, you put these ads on Trulia, you put these ads on Zillow, and you're trying to generate that business. So the people, I always recommend put your phone number on there, because that way it forces them to call you. Phone calls are more personal, they're more, you get a better feel for the person versus an email or versus a text. So I always recommend put that on there. And also it weeds out the serious buyers or serious renters from the people who are just wasting time, and then there's a lot of scam artists out there on Craigslist. So it weeds out all the good from the bad, you know, and it saves you time in the long run as well.
A lot of the large property management companies, he's differentiating what he does, differentiating that between what these companies do. They'll have like a data input form, and people, you don't have to have a conversation at all, you don't have to have any communication at all, they just input data, they're looking at numbers only, and they make their decision almost solely based off that. So that's the kind of thing he's going to warn against there.
So like I said, our goal is to get them on the phone initially. And then once we get them on the phone, we want to ask them simple questions. When do you want to move? Why you want to move? How many people are moving to the house? Any pets? Because you want to get them to talk about themselves versus talking about the property. And that way you get a better feel for them over the phone and that initial conversation, and you start to build that initial rapport with them. So once you talk to them on the phone and everything checks out, and you send them the application and they seem interested, they send you all their information back. You get the income, you verify the income, you get the rental history, background check if possible, credit score. So now it's time to review all this information. A lot of people, a lot of owners, they don't want to take the time to make the appropriate phone calls, to do the appropriate research. I highly recommend that you do that. You know, take the time. Do a check, call their job, and see if they actually work there. See how long they've been at that employment. Maybe ask them, are they a reliable employee? Do they show up every day? You know, take the time to ask these questions. Also,
well, I just have to ask that because I'm a landlord. I haven't found that they divulge that particular information because there's a lot of liability.
Some do, some don't. But just
you can verify employment, for example, and do those kinds of things.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of times, oftentimes, like there's a new scam going on out there with fake pay stubs. You know, people can send you in fake pay stubs, and you know, like, so it'd be good just to call to verify, hey, they so and so work here. You know, it's always
similar to what we were talking about earlier with the rental references, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
what do we run into with that kind of fraudulent rental references?
with like the owners.
Yeah.
The owners yeah. So if an owner says they own a property, we'll do our due diligence to check to make sure that they're actually the owner. You know, we'll look them up on tax records to see when they bought the property to make sure they're the actual owner, who they say they are.
Sometimes the applicant will put down the owner of their property, it's really, you know, their cousin Billy. Yeah, and then they call him up, oh yeah, he's great, he always pays his rent, he's always on time, and he's just reading the script for his cousin or whatever.
Exactly.
So not only he does that diligence, he gets on the phone, he asks some investigative questions to make sure.
So
you require them to bring a credit check with them, the credit review?
no, we don't require it, but some different landlords may require it, different property managers may require it.
I seem to in San Francisco pretty routinely.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that we wanted Matt to talk about are some of the alternative measures, right? Because that's what a lot of people do. They want to see the credit check and they call it a day, but that's really kind of a superficial investigation. And so the this stuff that he does in my experience, tends to be a lot more effective. And then if we have a landlord who doesn't want a credit check, what do you do? What do you tend to have them do?
Well, I've done different routes myself. I've gone as far as like going to their social media pages to see like what type of person they are, how they live their life, and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to, like I said, you just want to get the better feel for these people and really understand who they are as a person and as a people, as a family.
If they have, you can always have them run their own credit for free on freecreditscore.com one time, and then scan. I think we've had tenants scan their free credit report into him.
Okay, so now we've done all the research, you know, we built this initial report that people talking to them on the phone. We've done our research, everything checks out, everything looks good, and they're ready to receive, or they're ready to turn in their rental application to begin the process even further. So now what we do is we conduct an in-home interview, and we actually go to their house where they currently live, and we want to meet everybody that's going to be in the house, that's going to be living in the new house. We want to meet the family, we want to meet the mom, the dad, the kids, everybody's going to be with the family dog, whoever's going to be there, we want to meet them all. So just overall to get a better feel for them, you know, make it more personal. And then also, when we walk into their house, we get a glimpse to see how they're going to treat the new home. We get like let's say we walk into a situation where there's holes in the wall, there's cigarette burns on the carpet, it's dirty, there's a weird odor. Like chances are we're not going to want to rent to these people because that's how they're going to treat the new home that they move into. You know, so we just use this as an overall feel to get a better gut feeling of what type of people they are. So then, after we take these steps, we get the phone interviews, we do our research, we have the in-home interview. We like to do a grading system, like an A through F grading system on all the applicants who are interested in the property, going from best potential renters to the least favorable renters, you know. And then like if you were the owner and you had a property manager, I would send you the report and then let you guys ultimately make the decision. But if you were the owner yourself, you would just review that report and then pick which candidate you feel is best from that list.
Sometimes you might think, well, why would I need to create a grading system for myself that I'm going to review? Well, sometimes just putting it down in writing and forcing yourself to scale them is really helpful. And Matt actually started doing that for us. I mean, we'd come across a number of pretty useful tips over the years. And when he started handling this for us, he implemented that grading system. And as Dorothy and I were going over it, we thought, man, this is really helpful because you know, you start remembering different things about people, and then it affects your subjectivity. But you grade them, and then you list them in a ranking order like that. I found it to be really, really effective, and it's really helped me a lot.
What I usually do is I get a credit report that they pay for. I check not only their last reference, but they usually give me 2 references, so I got 2 back.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. So I don't like the added step you're talking about, visiting the property,
right,
or their current residence. I think it's a really great idea.
Yeah,
So,
and it just because ultimately most owners want to find somebody who's going to be in there long term. You know, they don't want to keep having to find new tenants every year, every 2 years. So they want to find a really responsible, reliable tenant. So we feel we'll take an extra step in the front end to make it beneficial in the long run. So once you found a tenant and they moved into the house, you properly vetted them, everything's good, they start paying their rent. Most owners make a mistake by not keeping that door of communication open with the tenants, you know. So like I would recommend checking on the tenants every few months or so, you know, just checking to see how things are going. Just give them a casual phone call. Hey Jim, how are things going? How's your family? Is everything okay? You know, is anything going on with the house that I may need to know about, any repairs or issues that may come up? You know, and that goes a long way just by continuing to maintain that relationship that you built earlier on, and then also just, you know, because a lot of times the tenant doesn't want to call the owner, so you might have to call them to find out any repairs. Like I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples of what happened to some people for the properties that we managed that had poor communication, and it cost us big in the long run. So we had a tenant, she had a leak in one of her houses, or she had a leak in one of her showers, and instead of letting us know and letting the owner know, she decided to fix it herself. So she replaced the shower head, she replaced a broken shower head that was leaking, and she improperly assembled the new shower head, so it continued to leak. And not only was it leaking, but now it was spraying everywhere, and it was spraying onto the carpet, and it caused like a mold, and it caused like some more damage to the house. So the owner was upset. He was upset because the water bill was more expensive now, and then also the house is getting damaged. You know, so he was upset, the tenant was upset, like both parties were upset. So it eventually led into the lease not being renewed. And then, and in the long run, more money out of the owner's pocket.
One thing I'd qualify on that is because Matt did a great job mitigating the damage on that. That was a tenant we assumed. So that wasn't a tenant we placed, right? So we assumed a property management contract that already had a person in it. And so he went a long ways to, I would call it repair or mitigate what damage was already being done. But in the end, it turned out to be a fairly negative situation because those steps weren't taken initially.
Right, exactly.
So now we're in the process of, he's handling all the repairs for them. We're gonna get it fixed up and then they'll re-rent it the right way.
Right, exactly. So that was just a short example of a situation that we had that I want to share with you guys that hopefully can be avoided if ever you guys own a property and in this situation in the future by taking these steps to ensure that you have good tenant-client relationships and everything moving in a smooth, orderly manner. 3 Point Real Estate, like every tenant we've placed using this system, we've never had to evict anybody. We're back to 100 right now, so we've never had to evict anybody using this system and procedure. So it's proven to work for us, you know.
Me?
But,
No, I thought they was gonna move.
and I was just to finish up is, I know most homeowners are busy, you know, with their day-to-day lives, their family, their job, their work, their obligations. So if you feel like you don't have the time to manage the property or build that rapport, vet the tenant properly, I would recommend hiring a property manager. You know, that's something that we do on a day-to-day basis. We do it every day. If you hire a good property manager, you know, the pros will definitely outweigh the cons and outweigh that minimal monthly fee that's associated with it. We essentially work as the middleman between the owner and the tenant. A lot of times, like I was saying earlier, the tenant doesn't want to call the owner and say, hey, the shower's broken. Could you send somebody out here to fix it? Or they don't want to say, hey, I'm going to be late on my rent this month. I just need a few more extra days to pay. They don't want to have those conversations with them because they're not good. They're not friendly conversations to have. So in result, they just don't have it. They don't call them, and the owner doesn't know what's going on. It can lead to a bad relationship, and vice versa. If the tenant's late on the rent, the owner doesn't want to call the tenant and say, "Where's my money? Where's my money? When are you going to have my money?" You know, that can lead to a bad relationship. So it's our job to be the middleman. I don't have any problem calling the people, calling the owner, calling the tenant, being that middleman, so they can keep their good, positive relationship on both ends, and we'll just be the mediator in the middle.
What do you think of the idea of having in the contract that every 3 months you can inspect the house to prevent tenant purposeful damage?
That could be something that's added into it. That would be more time consuming for the
That doesn't
owner.
sound like fun.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it could be a hassle for the tenant, more time consuming for the owner. I feel it'd be more important, or it'd be the best approach would be to build that relationship so they feel comfortable enough to communicate with you. If those lines of communication are open, so they'll feel, like I said, comfortable to pick you up and say, hey, this and this so-and-so is going on, this toilet's broken, etc.
One of the things to touch on, because I think what you're thinking is not there's a problem with the house and they're not comfortable relating it to the owner, but they're just damaging the house.
Right, because some
So
friends of mine, they bought about 5 houses during the recession, and he's a contractor, and they had one tenant that was terrible, that caused about $10,000 or $15,000 worth of damage. So that purposely, not accidentally.
Right.
So thereafter, they wrote into their rental contracts that they could go buy the house every 3 months.